Hello viewers, welcome to this video. This is a series about GlusterFS. We've covered various topics, and in this video we will be looking at how to extend your GlusterFS volume and how to shrink your GlusterFS volume. Alright, so for this demo, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to create a distributed volume, this one here, and I'm going to create this distributed volume with just one brick in Gluster 1. So the volume will have just one brick, and we will try and mount it in our client machine and then write some files to it, and the files will all land in this brick 1. And then I will show you how we can add bricks to the existing volume. So when I say extending the volume, it's just adding additional bricks to your existing volume, and if you want to shrink a volume, it's just taking away some of the bricks from your storage pool. Okay, so that's what we'll be doing in this video, and I've got the same setup that I've used for all my previous videos. So I've got Gluster 1, I've logged into Gluster 1, Gluster 2, and the client machine, Gluster client. And I've also got my host terminal here, and these are the 3 Linux containers that I'm running. All are CentOS 7. Okay, so now let's try and create a Gluster volume, a distributed volume, and add more bricks to it. Alright, so first thing is we are going to create a volume with just one brick. Okay, so Gluster volume list. We don't have any volumes at the moment. Let's create a volume. Gluster volume create, name of the volume, volume 1. I'm not going to create it as a replicated volume or a striped volume, so it's just a distributed volume, and by default if you don't specify any type it will be a distributed volume. And I'm going to create it on Gluster 1 colon Gluster slash brick 1, and I'm going to force the command because I haven't got a separate file system or separate hard disk for my Gluster bricks. So I'm going to be using the same system partition, and it will throw a warning when I use the system partition. So that's why I'm using the force command here. Okay, so volume created, Gluster volume list, we have volume 1. Gluster volume status, volume is not started. Obviously we need to start the volume once we create it. Gluster volume info. So you can see here the number of bricks in this current volume is 1, and the brick is in Gluster 1. Status is created but not started, so let's go ahead and start this volume. Gluster volume start, name of the volume, volume 1. That's done. Gluster volume status. So we have one brick in our volume. Gluster volume info. Status is started with one brick. Okay, so now let's try and mount this volume in our client machine. Make the /mnt volume 1 mount -t Gluster FS Gluster 1 and the name of the volume, volume 1, and I'm going to mount it under /mnt volume 1. Okay, that's done. Mount, and if I grep for volume, you can see here /mnt volume 1 is mounted from Gluster 1 volume 1. Type is GlusterFS, read write, and so on. Okay, so cd to mnt volume 1. We don't have any files, it's a brand new volume. Let's create some files. Touch file, let's say let's create 5 files, or let's create 4 files. Okay, file 1, file 2, file 3, and file 4. And I'm going to go to Gluster 1 here and take a look at /Gluster brick 1. So we have all the files in one brick, file 1, file 2, file 3, and file 4, because our volume contains just one brick, consists of just one brick. And if I go to Gluster 2 and if I do ls Gluster, I don't see the brick here because we haven't created any brick. Okay, so now we've got a volume with one brick and some files and some data in it. So now we need to extend the volume, which is a distributed volume, by adding additional brick to the volume. So this command can be run on any of your storage nodes, and I'm going to stick with Gluster 1, and I'm going to add additional brick to this volume called volume 1. So gluster volume add brick. So that's the command. If I just hit enter, it's going to show me the usage. So volume add brick, name of the volume. Okay, add brick, we are going to add a brick to the volume 1, and it's not a striped volume, it's not a replicated volume, and we need to give the name of the brick, which is in gluster2 / gluster / brick 1, and I'm going to force it. Okay, so volume add brick success, that's fine. And if I do gluster volume info, now we can see here number of bricks is 2. We have 2 bricks, one in gluster 1 and one in gluster 2. Okay, so now if I do ls gluster brick 1, still you see all the files are in the brick 1 in gluster 1. And if I go to gluster 2 and do ls gluster, we have the brick now, but we don't have any files in the brick. So if I go to my notes here, we started with the volume with a single brick, we mounted in our client machine, we wrote some data to it. So all the data is in brick 1. Because this is a distributed volume, all the data that you write to that volume will get distributed across all the bricks. But since we just added a new brick to this volume, we need to rebalance our data. So all the data at the moment is in brick 1. We need to redistribute the data so that it gets distributed evenly between all the bricks. Okay, so the command to do that is volume rebalance, and I'm going to do it from gluster 1 as usual. You can also do it from gluster 2, gluster volume rebalance, and if I just hit enter, it's going to show me the usage, volume rebalance, name of the volume. Either you can just fix the layout, or you can also, in addition to fixing the layout, you can also migrate the data so that it gets evenly distributed. All right, so the command is gluster volume rebalance, name of the volume, which is volume 1, and start. Okay, so once you do that, it will redistribute all the files here, file 1, file 2, file 3, file 4, between the 2 bricks. And then while it's doing that, we can also look at the status command. So I'm going to copy this command, and in gluster 2 I'm going to do a status, but I'm not going to hit enter now. So here I'm starting the rebalance operation, so that's doing the rebalance. So now if I hit status, now the transaction is in progress, please try again after some time. Okay, so let's wait for it to complete. Okay, so that's completed. It says rebalance on volume 1 has been started successfully. Use rebalance status command. Because we have only like few files, it should have completed really quick. And if I go to gluster 2 and click on status, and you can see here the number of files scanned is 4, status is completed, volume rebalance on volume 1 is a success. Okay, that's cool. So now if I go to gluster 1 and do ls gluster brick 1, you can see here file 3 and file 4 are in gluster 1, and the other files should be in gluster 2. Okay, so file 1 and file 2 are in gluster 2. So now we have an evenly distributed files in our volume across the 2 different bricks here. Okay, so that's how you extend the volume by adding additional bricks. And now let's see how to shrink a volume by taking away the brick. So when you take away the brick, at the moment we've got our data returned to this volume, which is distributed between these 2 bricks here. So now in order to remove a brick, to shrink a volume, say for example this volume is 1 gig and this volume is 1 gig. So because this is a distributed volume, it's going to give you a size of 2 gig, and if you want to reduce or shrink your volume by 1 gig, I'm going to take away this brick and it will leave us with 1 gig, which is just that brick. But we've already got data in this brick 1. Alright, so file 2 and file 3, sorry, file 1 and file 2 are in this brick. So when we shrink a volume or when we remove the brick, we need to make sure that all the files in this brick are migrated to or distributed to the other bricks in the cluster, in the storage pool. So in our case, we only have 2 bricks. So if we remove this brick, all the data that was in this brick needs to be migrated to this brick here. But if you had a number of storage servers and a number of bricks, the files in this brick will get distributed across all the other bricks available in your volume. Okay, so let's start the command. I'm going to go to Gluster1 and do Gluster volume remove brick. Okay, the help command is remove brick, name of the volume, and start is the command. So there are actually two operations, two commands that we need to do. The first command is Gluster volume remove brick. We are going to remove the brick from the volume 1, and the name of the brick is, it's on Gluster2 Gluster brick 1 start. So we are just starting the operation. So once that's complete, so basically what this command is going to do is it's going to take all the files that are in this brick, and then it's going to redistribute that file to other available bricks. And then finally, that's not done yet, we need to do the commit operation that will actually remove the brick. Okay, so this operation, it's not going to remove the brick, although it says remove brick. It's just migrating the data. So it's a two-step operation. So first one is migrating the files, and then we use the commit option to actually remove the brick. Okay, let's start that. So it's given some warning. Do you want to continue with your current cluster force migration setting? Yes. Okay, so that's in progress, so it shouldn't take longer because we've got only few files here. And if I do status now, it says rebalanced 2 files. So we had 2 files in brick 2 that has been rebalanced. So now if I do Gluster volume info, you can see here still we have the 2 bricks, but in Gluster2, if I do ls Gluster brick 1, we don't have any files here. Cool. So all the files that were in Gluster2 has been migrated to Gluster1. ls Gluster brick. So as you can see now, file 1, file 2, file 3, file 4, all the files are now in our other brick. So now we can go ahead and remove that brick. Gluster volume remove brick. Name of the volume is volume 1, and the brick is Gluster2 Gluster brick 1, and now the operation is commit. Okay, so volume remove brick commit success. Check the removed brick to ensure that for all the files are migrated, which we just did. So there are no files in that particular brick. And if I go to Gluster2, we don't have any brick. So now we can actually remove that file. Gluster brick 1, back to Gluster1, and if I do Gluster volume info, so now we are back to 1 brick. Number of bricks is 1, and the brick is in Gluster1. So we started with this volume with 1 brick with a distributed volume. We wrote some data, and then we extended the volume by adding additional brick, and then we rebalanced the files so that it got distributed evenly. And then when it comes to shrinking the volume, we removed the brick with the start operation, which migrated the files in this brick to other bricks, and then we use the commit option to remove the brick. Okay, I think that's all I wanted to show you in this video. Hope you found this video useful. Give it a try. If you've got any questions, let me know. I'll be happy to help. I will see you all in my next video. Bye bye.